Hey, what's up?
Hello.
Hi!
Favorite date idea?
Anywhere outdoors.
Anything with physical activity.
Going on adventures, like to the zoo or to USS.
It'll be a nice dinner and a long walk after that.
What's your favorite pet name for your partner?
Honey pie, sugar munchkin.
I would say big.
I haven't really tried it yet, but I guess it will be big.
His full name.
Okay, what's your favorite romance show?
Me before you.
Love Heart on Netflix.
None.
Your name?
Describe dating in one word.
It'll be commitment.
Crazy.
Complicated.
Adventure.
Hi everyone, we are now live. Good evening to you and thank you for joining us today on Living Room Series Part 2 on, what's it about? Dating! Woo!
Yeah!
Okay, so I think you guys already know the topic at hand and we're just so excited to have this group of people here to share a little bit more about dating. But before we get started, do you all know how we got this topic?
No.
Okay, so basically, like the team came together and we felt like, hey, let's have authentic conversations about things, topics that are pertinent to our young people today. And what the team kind of did, as well as from the ground, we kind of consolidated all these questions together and we thought, hey, why not we kind of talk about it? And I think these are really topics that are of interest to young people today, right? So I think today we're not here to tell you guys what to do or what's right, but to just have a conversation about some of their past experiences. I think you guys might also hear some tea today, but I think their views and beliefs might also be of interest to you guys. And let's just have, just talk and have fun today.
Yeah.
So we welcome you to join us, have fun, pull in all your friends online. If they're not here with us, quickly send them the link and we just love to have a chat with you today. Okay,
Right.
So without further ado, let's get our team here to introduce themselves, okay? So maybe you can tell us your name, your age, and how long you were dating your partner. Because all of them are dating, by the way. But how long they were dating their partners, if like say they are married, and how long they may have been dating their partners. Okay, so I'll start off first. I'm Gabby, I'm 26 this year. I know I look younger than that, but I'm like 26 this year. And I was dating my husband for about 7 years before we got married. Yeah, so I'm married now. But that's for me. Okay, how about you guys? Maybe we can start from that side.
Yeah, hi, I'm Desmond. I'm 28 this year and I have been dating my wife for 6 years before getting married, coming to 7 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm 27 this year and I've been dating my husband, recently married, for 5 years before we got married this
Nice.
year.
Nice. My name is John. I'm 26 years old this year.
Oh, sorry, you're gonna share your dating status.
Yes, yes. To everyone
Wow.
out there, yeah, I've been dating unofficially for about 1 year plus,
Wow.
which means that I'm still praying and fasting and seeking God on when the right time is.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi everybody, I'm Aries. I haven't been dating for 7 years. I'm sorry. But for 7 months. So I'm 20 this year, so that explains. When I did for 7 years, I'll be like 16.
Oh no. Okay, so maybe we kind of start off with our launching question because I asked you guys and I think in the video y'all shared like one word that you would describe dating, right? Y'all remember the word, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yep.
great. Okay, so we're gonna start off with John.
Okay.
Your word was commitment,
Yes.
right? So guys, we got a committed person here. And he'll share why
Yes.
later on. Yeah, I kind of had a glimpse of the script already, but why commitment?
Yeah.
Maybe you can share a little bit more.
Okay, I think the reason why I chose the word commitment to relate to dating is because I think I had a few bad experiences in the past. So I think back in secondary school when I was still young, I think a lot of my friends, everyone was in a relationship. And what I wanted to do was to follow the trend and try to fit in.
Yeah.
And because of that, I was in it wasn't really official relationship, but both parties like each other, but we weren't sure whether we wanted to commit or not.
Yeah.
So because of that short-term commitment, I ended up hurting a few people in the past.
Okay, I
And-
hope they're not watching this now.
yeah, yeah. So I think because of that, I really hurt them, and up to today, we are no longer friends. Yeah, so that's pretty sad. Yeah, one of my regrets of my life, and that's the reason why I learned that dating is a serious thing.
Yeah.
Because I date to marry, and I want to really commit and not hurt anyone in the future.
So nice,
Yeah.
guys. Wow. All right. Start off strong.
Model answer.
Can we have some like another casual answer? Okay, that's what your word was. Okay, you can tell everyone on the screen.
My word was complicated. I put complicated because
you're a heartbreaker.
dating involves two people coming together trying to find common ground.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, you like it or not, you probably have similarities, but you will definitely have differences. Right, and real dating involves more than just. I mean, dating is fun, right? It's fun, but it also involves a lot of work. If you really want to make dating work, leading hopefully to marriage, right? It involves sacrifice, it involves work, it involves a lot of communication, and it's not always very straightforward, right? Sometimes it gets complicated, and it's okay to get complicated. I think sometimes we think that dating, when you're in love, right, everything has to be perfect, right? Wow, this person who you love so much, everything is just perfect. You love everything about him or her. But I think the reality is, it's not really like that, right? Sometimes it gets complicated, and it's alright.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe we can hear like, you know, in line with that, I think your word was crazy.
Okay, I think that for me, I say crazy because it feels dating to me. I mean, as compared to all of your a lot of experience. Like to me, it's a very one of a kind feeling, or a relationship. It's very different from like family members or like your partners. I'm not partners. Your parents, your siblings, your friends. It's very crazy because I've never felt that kind of feeling before in other relationships in my life. And there are a lot of ups and downs in dating. The things that you go through is not just lunch, it's like life. So I think that's why it's like quite crazy to me.
You really do life with someone, like life is crazy, right? So I think it's also fun, I would say. But we can talk a little bit more about that later. Ash, what about you?
My word was adventure. I think because I feel like dating is a balance between like doing scary things together and also being very excited. So like for example, you go and go on adventure like and discover like a new like city. You're like always you have this adrenaline. You're like, oh no, I don't know where to go, kind of, but I'm still excited at the same time. So I think to me that's how it feels like all the time. Like we're always doing new things together, like buying a new home together, or like getting married, or you know, applying for your house or whatever. It's always scary, but it's like someone to do scary things together. That's how I would describe it.
I think it's like an adventure where you discover a lot about yourself as well. Like things that you're like, hey, you know, I never knew this about myself. I'm a little bit crazy. You're like, hey, actually, the person's a bit crazy. You know, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think whatever you guys share, I think that's really cool. Thanks for sharing. And so maybe just to kind of set a little bit of an introduction today, I think today we'll be answering some questions where we explore various stages of dating, right? So we're going to go into, you know, how maybe the getting to know you stage and the casual, you know, level, how does that kind of look like and what do you guys look out for? We'll also kind of talk about, you know, the transition into a partner for life. And we're going to be covering topics like boundaries, you know, healthy relationships, green flags, or like, you know what the Gen Zs like to call it, red flags, right? Like, you know, red flags on TikTok, they're like, hey, you know, what is this a red flag? And then everyone's like, yo, that's a red flag, right? So we're going to be chatting a little bit about that today and how that looks like for you. Okay, but the first topic is on the dating spectrum. Okay, I know it's a very confusing word. Okay, hear me out, guys. But I think there are some thoughts around dating, right? Some people believe that you only date the one that you marry, right? And then you have a group of people who decide like, hey, I get to date as many people as I want at the same time. There's also another group of people that's like, I can go out with you for 1 or 2 times and let's kind of hang out and we see where it goes, right? So the dating spectrum definitely looks different for different people. How does the dating spectrum look like to you guys personally? And maybe y'all can share, you know, your past experiences and what you see the stages and how it progresses. Okay, maybe we can start off with the person dating right now, Iris.
Okay, so I don't identify myself in any of the 3 categories actually. I think that for me, I'm not a person that casually dates. Like I don't like, oh, you want to go on a date, let's go. Because like for me, I'm very emotional. If you know me, you all know me. I'll like pour my heart and soul into things. So I would be more like committed dating, but I won't say that I'll only date a person if I'm going to marry this person. Yeah, because I feel that it's a very dangerous line if you are too like in love with that person also, and you know and you think that you're gonna marry that person, and that's why you date that person. I think it comes from that.
Yeah.
It stems from that perspective. But I think that it's okay, like going out on dates and seeing where things go, and of course praying about it, and just planning about the future revolving around that person. But I think it's okay to break up. I think it's okay to let go of relationships as well.
So fun fact, like when I was young, I used to read like Wattpad. I don't know if y'all know what Wattpad is.
You're a boomer.
I have no idea what that is.
I have no idea what that is.
Okay, it's like when people write stories. Okay. It's very terrible. But basically, like I used to be super like into like love stories. So I was
fanfics.
Yeah, so I would like think about. Okay, this is so embarrassing. I used to think about like somebody, like someone that I had a crush on, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to date that person, I'll marry that person. So yeah, so it's very bad. Yeah, don't do that. I'm exactly like that. Very emotional, but okay. But what about you guys? Like I think you mentioned commitment, right? So how does the dating spectrum look like for you, John?
I think for me, for my journey, and for my experience, I think it will first start off as friends first.
Okay.
So I think in a church context,
You so must date in church, is it?
no, not really. Just for me. Yeah, just my preference, my personal preference. Start off with friends, and I think it's like serving together, being in like event committees together.
Wow,
Just working together to get to
Sounds
know.
very specific.
Very specific.
Okay.
In an iGroup together. Yeah, no, just kidding. Yeah, but starting off as friends, serving and just working together in the ministry wise, and then if I'm interested in the person, then I will definitely move on to casual dating, which is for me to get to know the person better, and for the person to get to know me better. And I think it reaches a point when I think we will both know when the right time is to really sit down, have a nice dinner, then sit down and talk about how we feel about each other. And then after that, we will decide, okay, what are the next steps to do? Is it pray, fast, be accountable to someone else and stuff like that. So I think these are the 3 stages I would say that is my journey. And I think it's good because when I have these stages, it encourages me not to rush into it. But it takes stages by stages because it takes time to pray and fast and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there are definitely areas sometimes where it gets really fuzzy as well. And for you, it's like if I'm aware of the stages, then I prevent myself from getting hurt. I think that's your stance, which I think is really insightful as well. Okay, maybe we just get one more person. Okay, between the two of y'all can decide who wants to share.
But winner share.
It's my privilege. Jesus, babe. It's
Okay, like this one lah.
Jesus.
Stone.
Okay,
Okay, I'm the winner.
Nice.
So dating spectrum. I think everyone's journey is unique.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. I remember when I was younger and how I listened to some of my youth leaders stories about how they got into their relationships, how they started, and how they prayed about it and things like that. And I envisioned myself having the same journey. But I think when I grew up and I had my own journey, my own courtship with my now wife, right, I realized that I had a different journey, and there's no reason why I should feel bad or that I had a different journey, because I think there's no one size fits all, right? But I do agree with John that it still involves some kind of commitment. That it should not just be a speed dating thing or like you're just shopping for a product, right? Because that ends up with people getting hurt, right? Either yourself or your partner getting hurt, right? So while it's okay to not like what Iris said about not having this person I date, we must get married because you're putting yourself in a very precarious situation where you have no choice but to get married. Sometimes you might feel that way, right? But at the same time, it cannot be too casual as well, right? But my own journey, my own personal journey was that I prayed about it, right? I consulted my leaders, and allowed things to flow naturally. One fun fact about how I felt more assured in my courtship with my wife now was her mom, which is my mother-in-law now, actually helped wingman me. Right? So she just outright asked me whether I liked her daughter, and I felt compelled to just tell her the truth. Right? Even though it was a little bit stressful at the time. So I tell her, yes, auntie, I like your daughter. And she was very happy to hear that. And she wingman me, she gave me tips. She told me, next time when you go out with her, do this, she will like it. And that was one of the reasons I felt God was providing opportunities. God was opening doors. This was before I even confessed my feelings for her. And I confessed my feelings to her mom first. And she helped me to to win her heart. And I thought that was quite a special moment for me.
No, I think it's very nice. I think you mentioned something about like getting, having like someone like a senior person, right, to help, like, I wouldn't say in this case wingman, but to also be accountable to the person and get tips. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be the parent, but I think that's really interesting because I think the idea behind everything that you guys have said is like, hey, are you guys aware of the different stages? And like, of course, one aspect is accountability, but second is also how do you protect yourself and guard yourself and the person that you're dating as you progress through the dating spectrum. So I think that's really interesting. It also leads me to my second question, and we actually received this question from someone. Okay, so I don't know. Y'all know that we open an anonymous question bottle.
No, yeah.
Okay, and y'all need to put like Harborlight Instagram notifications on right now. Okay, guys, if you're online, put it on right now. Okay, but we received this question, and I think I'll set the context first, right? So during the casual dating stage, it's easy to fall in love fast. And I'm sure that you guys have also, I hope, experienced something similar like that. Like you have a crush on someone that you go to bed and you're like, wow, how would life be with that person, right? For me, I shared with y'all when I was young and how that looked like. And I think for many people, young people especially today, they actually end up developing feelings for someone even before it may be reciprocated, right? So the question is, have you ever experienced something like this? And how do you manage your excitement versus disappointment in the process? Okay, in hindsight, right, what would you have told yourself or how would you have managed it? I know I didn't ask y'all this question when y'all are okay, y'all can take some time to think about it.
Sorry, so the question is if you have a crush on somebody.
Yeah. How do you manage your excitement and disappointment? It could also be
you
when
don't
you're
know how they feel, right?
Yeah.
So you don't know how they feel.
Yeah.
And how do you manage those feelings?
Yeah.
And then there was a second part that said,
I mean,
how
if
would
now
you
y'all
advance?
look at it now, would you guys have done it like differently? Okay, but maybe y'all can share a little bit. Are y'all the kind who will jump into being excited fast, or y'all are like more of the, you know what, I'm gonna kind of stand back and like guard myself first? Okay, maybe we can get Ashley, you can share first.
I think it really depends. I don't think it's a personality thing. I think it's like it depends on a person thing. If you're like for Ollie, I was definitely the more excited one as compared to him. And yes, I've been labelled the simpy one. Yeah, but I think, on hindsight, I share from my experience. Okay, I think what I would tell myself, like when I was younger, is to firstly not rush into things. Because when you're excited and then you'll meet a lot and then you'll see each other a lot and then like there's like sparks flying, then it's natural to want to progress fast. But what that does is that you think with your heart and your emotions without thinking with your head.
Exactly.
So I think what the struggles I had when I was younger was that I didn't really know what I wanted. So I would say that just now, kind of answering the previous question also, we didn't casually date. We had a period of confused dating. It's not casual dating, it's confused dating. Because I didn't really know what I wanted. So my advice to myself would be to not rush, would be to think properly, and to get godly counsel ASAP. So same as kind of what the two guys echoed, right?
Definitely.
I think getting accountability is something that you're inviting someone to your life to give you wisdom and to say, hey, I don't think you're going too fast.
I think you're falling off a little bit fast, girl. Like, stay back.
Exactly.
Okay. Maybe you could just get like one more view. Y'all like feel a deep burning desire to be like, yeah, sure, I'm very emotional one. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, maybe I can share.
Okay.
I mean,
also.
Thanks for volunteering.
I think for me, I'm slightly different because I feel like ever since I was young, even before I got into my first relationship, I've always been very, I've always guarded my heart. I think it stemmed from a lot from like my family or like my parents' relationship, which makes me feel very wary of relationships in general because I think I'm very fearful of people leaving me or people like not loving me, that kind of thing. So I think for me, I didn't manage my excitement very well at the start. I would be very excitable, but I won't show it. I'll be like, okay, yeah, I'll see how it goes. Like, he confessed first, then I say, yeah, that kind of thing. So, but I know in my heart, I know that I'm excited for it. I want to like, you know, let's get together, that kind of thing. But of course, I won't show it to my partner. I think, like, if I look at it now, my current relationship, I think that I have learned a lot from my previous relationships. Yeah, and I've learned how to manage this expectation or like this excitement by understanding like where my self-worth stems from. Like if my self-worth stems from if I get rejected, will I hate myself? Will I like blame God? You know, I think like being rooted in knowing who I am, in my identity in Christ, really helped me a lot in my relationships. And like understanding like even if it's rejection, I'll take that as an answer from God. So that really helped me like manage my expectations and excitement.
Yeah, I think one thing that you shared, which I completely relate to, is like the fruitfulness in like guarding your heart as well, and like guarding like yourself as the stages progress. Like you mentioned something about like, oh, I'm confused, and for you it's like, okay, I'm like a bit more withdrawn, right? Yeah, I think maybe I can share a little bit also. I think for me, I'm always the person who falls in love first. Yeah, unfortunately. But I think if there's something I would kind of tell myself in hindsight, it's like to really wait on God's timing. And I think it can be a very tricky thing when you don't really know how to ask God. But one of the things that I've learned in even the season I am in now, with many aspects of my life, right, is to just ask God to take the wheel and let Him orchestrate it. You don't necessarily have to hear like, oh, I need to hear a sign from God and be like, oh yeah, you know, this guy is right for me, or like, yeah, you hold back and wait. Sometimes these things come in the form of godly counsel, but at the same time, I do believe that God is someone who is real to us and is in our lives. So if there are times where, you know, like especially for our audience here, if you guys are unsure, just let God do His thing, and don't. There's beauty in not rushing God, not trying to twist God, or helping God speed things along. I think I read somewhere, don't let your mind marry Him before the rest of you can. We read a lot. Okay, we went through a lot of resources. But I think that's really what it is. I think especially for you guys who are dating, I think that's something that I hope you all can also, you know, take away from this relationship, this conversation as well. Okay, y'all got any other burning thoughts to share on this topic before I move on?
No.
Okay. I move on to the next part. We mentioned something about red flags and green flags. So just for the sake of this conversation and the people who are watching, green flags are like good things I like about someone, and red flags are things that you're like, you know, this is red flags, we gotta run, you know, toxic stuff, exactly. And that being said, right, I think when you guys are dating and getting to know someone, before you even get into intentional committed dating, there are things that you look out for, right? What is something that you feel you personally look out for on a personal level, and you know, what helped you to say I'm ready to proceed? Okay, who did I share just now? Okay, the guys first.
This one?
Okay, John cannot share because he's not there yet. Okay, that's one first.
Green flags are things that I look out for.
Yeah.
Before we started dating. I think the one thing that is important to me is her heart, right? Her heart for people, compassionate and a compassionate heart and having empathy is important. So that I think out of everything, I just had a conversation with my wife about this recently. She asked me in context of she asked me in context of our children. Will we rather our children be very smart or very kind? And we had to only choose one, smart or kind. And she gave me other what's that word, adjectives. After that, and I always chose kind. I always chose kind over like good looks, chose kind over like strength or athletic and I think that's something that's close to my heart. Right? Being kind, caring about the world, caring about people that are just living life more than just for yourself. So I think that's for me.
I think it definitely ties into like the fact that you put God first in your life as well, and like to be a people person is really like, you know, something with respect to like your faith, and I would say that that's probably how it, you know, related to your green flags. Am I right?
Yes, I mean definitely there's a spiritual part of it, definitely how I view the world through the eyes of God
Yeah.
plays a part in how I choose
Yeah.
choose my partner. I can't, my partner can't have a completely different view of the world or
Yeah.
spiritually as I do, right?
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I think for you guys as
Yeah.
well, definitely.
Okay. Anyone can relate to that, or like what are some things y'all look out for?
I think I can share similarly to what Des was sharing. So just a funny story. You guys heard it before, but before Ollie and I crossed over to serious dating, from not say casual lah, but considering to like seriously, okay, this is possibly the guy that I might marry. Actually, Gabby and I were like at a restaurant, and we were putting down on a napkin like reasons why like he should cross over to the other side, and that was the first time that I realized that actually I value humility. I value this servant heart that my husband has, and that's something that I wouldn't trade for career, like for confidence, or like anything that you would list, like kind of like what Desmond is like this quality that outweighs everything. So I think that for me was a huge green flag. Secondly is also what he said, and also what you mentioned about your personal relationship with Jesus. So me and my girlfriends used to joke about this. I think that it's very hard to find a man or a woman that can be broken before the Lord. Someone that really, really loves God to a point that he or she, or rather he, God himself, is first place in this person's life. And this is something that I noticed in Ollie's life. I knew that no matter what, Jesus will always be first. And I think that that's something that stood out amongst the rest.
Yeah, I think that's when so moral of the story, guys, bring a pen everywhere you go.
You might need a napkin somewhere, you never know.
Okay, what about you guys?
I'll go first. I think for me, one of the biggest green flag that I look out for is the way the person serves. So the way the person serves in church. And I think you'll be wondering, like, okay, everyone's serving in church, how can you tell? And I think it's not something in particular, but I think it's the way the person serves. I think someone that's not afraid to do the dirty work. For example, picking up litter in church, pushing back the chairs and stuff like that. So someone that is not always in the limelight, but behind the scenes, this person is always serving, not wanting credit from people, but always wanting to do whatever glorifies and honor God. And I think once I see that, right, I will just be so attracted to the person. So that's one of the biggest green flag for me.
Okay, I'll throw more litter around church. So we
Just speed dating your
When y'all pick up, you must just make sure people are looking now.
Make sure someone takes a photo.
Okay. Arius, what about you?
For me, something that holds very closely to my heart is family. And it's something that I will always look for in my partner and in the relationship. Because I think that how my partner treats their family, their relationship with the family, and how my partner most importantly treats my family is super important to me. And it's a complete deal breaker for me also. If like they are rude, or if they they don't have a good relationship with my parents, I always say like, you're dating me, it's like dating my family. That's for me lah. I cannot say the same for everybody, but for me, I'm very, very close to family. So
but your parents can tell though, I feel.
and my parents have like parents have this like.
They do.
So if your parents don't like him, even though he's very nice,
I would need to understand where it comes from and like why. And if it's valid, then I will try to see it from their point of view as well. But if they tell me like, oh, I don't like him because he's smelly, then okay, I'll give him cologne or something. But it has to come from a point of view of like, oh, I don't like him because he was very disrespectful to your grandma, that kind of thing. And then they'll be like, oh, it's like that's for me lah.
They pick up things that sometimes we are blinded by.
It circles back to just now what we said.
Exactly. I think I kind of echo that. Like, okay, now in hindsight only. Okay, like now that I'm married, like my dad used to have opinions on like people that we date, and he was always like, they have to do this, and I'm like, why are you so intense? Like, can you leave me alone? I know what I'm doing, And now, like, as KJ, who's my husband, like as we talk about it, we're like, yeah, you know what, we're gonna do the exact same thing to our kids. Because I think in hindsight you realize that when you're in love, you're like, you have what's that phrase they always say, like rose-tinted glasses, right? And you don't see red flags. But that being said, okay, without going too much into detail, because I just want to skim past this really, really quickly, okay? What are some of your deal breakers and why?
If he lies consistently.
Whoa, whoa. Who hurt you?
No, I think if you can just briefly, I feel like if guys lie consistently and they are a different person when they're with you versus when they're with their friends, then girl, run.
Yeah.
Run.
How do you define consistently?
Like if you can call them out on their bluff lah. Like they say one thing but
Over
they
and
don't
over
do.
again.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
one time it's fine.
Like they
Like, I will pick you up at 10 p.m. but then they come at 10:30.
Yeah.
no, like they lie about who they are as a person.
Right.
They kind of magnify like their good qualities, and then after you realize that actually they don't really do that.
Yeah.
So just not truthful.
Yeah,
Yeah, not
I think
truthful, correct.
especially because as you enter a relationship, you do life with someone, right? You want someone who's honest with you.
Yeah.
Like you see them and they see you, but if you can't even look through them, then it's like, what am I looking at? Yeah. Okay, we only can one last deal breaker. Okay, like who's like
John.
John.
better be a good deal breaker, man.
That'll be a good one.
Good one, ah.
Give us the tea.
Okay, I think 3, but I think it's
What?
quite,
What? Say one
quite
only.
similar. Quite
What?
similar. I promise.
Okay.
Okay, someone that is immature,
Mm.
emotionally unstable, and needy. So I think these 3 kind of correlate. If she's immature, then I think the other 2 will fall in place.
Okay.
Yeah, so this-
Okay, but I want to ask a question on that because like if I'm just curious, like if adults look at us, they'll be like, hey, these kids are like talking about dating, right?
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, you're so very. Oh, sorry, we're in a real living room, guys. That's why got sounds of other things. Okay, but sorry, I was saying, I mean, how would you kind of see maturity then, right? Because that progresses as as the years go by,
Yeah. So I think it's really how the person views life. So I think in our conversation, be it in a group setting, be it how the person serves, and be it in a more casual setting like one-to-one, when we go out for dinner or go out for lunches together, I think it's really how the person carries themselves. And I think you can really tell whether the person is mature
Yeah.
or immature in the thinking. Yeah.
I think you raised a really good point, which is like as you get to know someone, right, you want someone that is willing to grow.
Yeah.
Right. And I think like it is a maturity to be like, hey, I'm still growing and I still have room to grow.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to actually be perfect, right? Because but you do have to have that desire to
Correct. Yep.
move on and grow as time goes by.
Yep.
I think that's a very interesting perspective as well. Yeah. Okay. So we're kind of moving on to a little bit about exclusive, intentional, and committed dating. I think we talked a lot about how you kind of look out for green flags and red flags. But for those of y'all who are recently married, I'm gonna need y'all to kind of like zoom back and be like, hey, how was it like when I was dating? Because I know it's difficult. Like as I was recalling, I was like, yeah, I so forgot already. I think it's no surprise that dating is a norm. But we've definitely also seen glimpses of healthy and unhealthy dating relationships. And I think even on media, right, like sometimes they can portray a very toxic relationship and then we just tag it as like, oh, that's really romantic. Definitely, I don't think there's any relationship that's perfect. I don't think there's a framework for relationships either. And I think Desmond touched on that earlier on. But there are definitely guidelines and boundaries in place to sort of decide like, hey, am I really in a healthy relationship or are there areas that I may want to work on, right? So my question here is, what are some things you've seen personally that make a healthy dating relationship? Yeah, it could be on an individual level. It could be on a couple dynamic level, right? It could be something you also value in your own personal relationship. Make y'all think. I know y'all like kind of, I didn't really ask y'all this to prep on this, but y'all confirm got something in mind, man.
So your question is, what makes a healthy relationship?
What's something that you personally value lah? Because there's many like things that make a healthy dating relationship, but for you it's like, hey, what do you think is really important?
Maybe I can share first. So I think for me personally, what I value as a previously mentioned, like emotionally available, emotional and like crying kind of person, right?
Yeah.
I think something that I really value is vulnerability. Like the ability to be vulnerable with each other, and as much as it is like a given, it's actually not very obvious in a lot of couples, or it's not really seen in a lot of couples, and like even relationships that I know of. Yeah, and I think that's something that I really value. The ability to struggle and like to be not okay in front of somebody else.
Yeah.
Not just with whatever you're upset about, but whatever that you're struggling with as well. In your heart or as a person. And I think that that's where like couples can grow together. And also like edifying and encouraging each other to grow personally in our own walks before like as a couple.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Anyone kind of feel the same? Or maybe another trait that you think is really healthy?
I think for us, I think what worked for us, and I feel like what's important and what I would share with our youth, because we are youth leaders, not all of us, but
Yeah.
we were, okay. We are youth leaders, is inviting accountability into your life, and walking in community with one another.
Yeah.
I feel like a huge indicator of whether a relationship is healthy or not is whether you're able to walk in community with other people. Because I feel like personally also, like when there are things that are in the secret where you don't feel like, oh, I don't feel like I want people to know about this, that's usually a breeding ground, I would say, for a lot of dangerous things to happen. So I think walking with community, with someone who's slightly older than you, who have been dating for a while, or if you're looking to get married, a married couple, I think that helps to create a atmosphere where you can go to them for help. So Ollie and I both have mentors who we love very much. They've worked with us when we were individuals, single, and then to dating, and then now to marriage. It creates an atmosphere where, like, if there's anything that I can't resolve, I can always be like, hey, can we meet you guys up? We kind of need to trash out something. What do you think? And they will be there to pray with us, to walk with us, and say, hey, I'm with you in this. And I think that's actually very healing, because you don't feel alone. So there are some issues that you feel like, oh, I can't tell anybody, I feel like I'm not getting to him. It's always good to have someone to like helpline, call, and like, hey, I need help.
I think that's really cool. It's sort of like a helpline a little bit. Like, you kind of think relationship is like between two people, but it's also like an accumulation of like the communities around as well. Right? Like, I think I completely relate to that, and allow me to just like ramble a little bit, okay? Like, I think for me, like during my years of dating of like 7 years, there were definitely like, ups and downs. And I think one of my biggest mistakes in dating, on hindsight, that now I look back, and of course I do differently, but in hindsight, I wish that I included more people into my journey, because sometimes when you feel isolated, you think, like, the way you think also becomes like your own thoughts, and you stop inviting people into your life to kind of correct you and guide you. But also, like, another thing that I think you briefly touched on is allowing God to also be the one that guides you through it, right? Like, I think spiritually is a very big aspect of a healthy dating relationship, especially Christian relationships, because I think the biggest orchestrator of all is still God. So I can kind of I think one of the things that, when even before I transitioned into deciding like, hey, I'm gonna marry this guy, right? So I told God, I was like, hey God, like, I want this guy, right? Like, if I'm going through a tough thing, I don't want this person to instantly just come and rush and be like, hey, what do you need help in? I think that's one part, but I wanted him to pray first. So that was like my go-to, and I was like, hey God, like, please make this happen. Like, I don't know how you're gonna do it, but like, I can't do it alone, so please make it happen. And he really did. So I feel like that was a very big part of how we even transited from something that was maybe not in the healthiest state to something that was a lot healthier. And I thank God for that lah. Okay, but how about you guys? Was there like a particular growth area? I know we talked about healthy dating relationships, we're still there, but was there a particular growth area that you felt you and your partner needed work on? And how did you guys work towards it? Still in the same line of thought. What do you guys think?
For me, I think one area that we are still working on, even after 6 years of dating and being married for almost a year, more than half a year, 7 months, 7 months, right? Is communication. Right? Before I got together with my wife, now wife, when we were 21. Right? But my previous relationship before that, I was 15.
Whoa.
Right, so there was a good like 6 year gap, and I mean 15 is not a real relationship. So I honestly take my relationship with my wife as kind of my first real girlfriend. Right? So but the problem with that is I never learned how to speak to women. Not on a like on a dating level. I mean from a friend level is completely different. Right? And I had to learn her unique love languages. I had to learn how she communicated and how best I could communicate with her without her misunderstanding what I was trying to say. Being a single child doesn't help either because I
Yeah.
never had siblings growing up. So communication is not a strong point for a lot of single children, right? So even to this day, I'm still learning. I'm still learning. I'm still learning about my wife. I'm still learning about how she needs to be loved. I'm still learning about how she communicates to me. Sometimes I feel frustrated or angry by certain things that she said, but maybe that's not how she meant it.
Yep.
And then I say certain things, and then she feels a certain way because she thinks I meant it this way, but I meant it another way. So like what I said, dating is complicated. Marriage is also complicated, right? So communication, for me, it is the key to any relationship.
Hey, thanks for being vulnerable.
Right, you need to, and it's still something we're working
for sure.
we're working on.
For sure.
And yeah, I think no relationship can survive without a very good foundation of communication.
Agree. Okay, what about you guys? Any like particular area, or maybe like values and morals that you feel like, hey, I kind of want to realign a little bit.
I'll go next. I think I echo what Des shared about communication. So I think I'm a person that's very close up. So even with my closest friends, sometimes I can be very close up. So I think it's very important as I move forward in my relationship as well, is to really communicate and open up and share what I'm really feeling, share what's on my heart, what's on my mind and stuff like that. Because I think if I don't share it, then there might be misunderstanding. There may be things that the partner may not know about, and that will cause arguments and stuff like that. And we may have different beliefs and different values at the point of time as well. So I think that's something that I'm still learning as well, to be open and to be able to share and communicate my feelings and my thoughts as well. So that's something that I think I am slowly wanting to grow and improve myself as. So I think in terms of healthy relationship wise, I think as cliche as it sounds, I think healthy relationship is when God is in the center of it all. So I think a leader drew this diagram for me before. So it was a triangle. So God was on top, and the bottom two is the two people in the relationship. And as these two people chase after God, they will naturally grow closer to each other as they grow closer to God as well. So that's something that I really want in a relationship where both parties really chase after God and will end up being closer to each other. So that's
I can chime in also, because I think for me, I mean, you all can chime in after I give my opinion, because like mine was a struggle and it's something that I'm still working on. So in my previous
communication, you mean?
On like God being the center of the relationship. So in like my previous relationship, we were both serving, and we were both very. God was in the center of our lives, but God wasn't in the center of our relationship. To be very honest, and I think it's not intentional. It's like it's not like I want to disobey God, but it just we didn't know how to put God in the center of our relationships. And I think that was something that I really struggled with, and something that I am trying to work towards a healthy relationship in my current relationship as well. My current partner, he's not, as he's not serving as faithfully or whatsoever, and he has his struggles with God as well. But I think the difference was that we really was very intentional in putting God in the center of our relationship.
Nice.
And like, to be very honest, like my boyfriend actually flew off this morning for like, I realized in the LDR. But I'm so confident, not confident in the relationship, but confident in knowing that whatever happens, right, it's God's it's God plans. And like whatever doors he opens, he cannot close it. Whatever doors he closes, whatever door he closes, I cannot open it. So it's like I think it's like finding out my identity in Christ, and like putting God in charge of the relationship. On top of like our individual walks with God lah, of course.
I think our mentors are like tearing right now. They're like, I'm so proud.
My mentor right here, shut up.
Nice.
Okay, any other thoughts on this?
If I could just add on to what Iris was saying about how she feels assured that God is in control, and whatever happens, God is in control, right? Every argument I've had with my wife, right? And every time we argue, we always come, take some time to just cool off, right? And I will always speak to God, right? And I'll always tell God that, you know what, this relationship is yours. Whether we make it or we don't, is all depends on you, right? It's not held together by me being
Yeah.
nice or her being nice is held together
Yeah.
by you. So you gotta help me. If you want it to work, you need to work it out. You need to help us communicate. I mean, we
So
argue
good.
because there's some kind of miscommunication or some kind of misunderstanding, right?
Yeah.
And God, you need to come in.
Yeah.
And more often than not, He will tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, more often than not, His answer is to ask me to apologize. And I always tell him, God, why am I apologizing again? Why is it me? But I just want to share that I think God has a unique perspective
Yeah.
that
Wow, so good.
that men should come forward
Wow.
and
Okay.
and sometimes men need to come forward and just be humble
Yeah.
and apologize even though it's not a fault. Right?
Okay, I hope my husband
Yes.
heard
Even
that.
though it's not a fault, but I think it's God's
Yeah.
calling for us to man up and take the lead
Yeah.
and apologize.
Agree. I think one thing that you mentioned, which I think was so good, is that let your convictions and the things that you discover along the way, the choices that you make in your marriage or even in dating, right, be found in the Word of God. Yeah, and more often than not, like you open the Bible, right, suddenly God's like, hey, sit down and be humble, right? Oh yeah, sorry God, I'll do that. And I think if we only listen to what our community and our friends say, sometimes that's one part. But at the end of the day, if we let God orchestrate our relationship, we learn a lot more about what He intends as we progress along.
Yep.
And I think I'm going to kind of move on to the next topic now, and I think that was a great segue into my next point on boundaries. So I know some of you guys online, boundaries is a very hot topic today because it gets a little bit fuzzy, for sure. There can be so many distractions, temptations, and even like cultural narratives, like media narratives that tell you that boundaries are not important. I think I've heard a narrative that says like, if it feels right, it's right. Right? I think you guys have heard that. Like, if it feels right in the moment, it's right. Like, I don't care. Like, if it's right, right? And so let's kind of like discuss a little bit about boundaries and limits. So maybe John and Aries, tell me what are one or two key boundaries that you've set up for yourself in dating? Wow.
I'm excited.
Three guys there.
One each.
One each, huh? You're the person who goes first, right? Then the other person needs to think of another answer.
Okay.
So who goes first?
Okay, I'll go first. I think for me, a boundary that I set that I feel is very important for my life is about having distance, which means having time apart.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what we talked about just now was that we fall in love too fast.
Yeah.
So, I have encountered that before, where I'm just led by my emotions,
Yeah.
I'm led by my heart and not by my mind,
Yeah.
and not by the spirit as well. Yeah, so I think for me, very, very important is distance, which means I need to take time away from that person because it will help me clear my mind, make me clear all my emotions first.
Yeah.
When I'm alone, I'm able to think properly.
Yeah.
I'm able to seek God, and
Yeah.
also I
That's
think
a
what
good idea.
Jinxie mentioned, I'm able to be accountable to my mentors as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with that distance, it really helped me be very focused on what I really want and see whether this relationship is really what God wants in my life. Yeah. So
Yeah.
distance is very important
Yeah.
for me.
Nice. I think distance, you mentioned emotional, maybe physical boundaries
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
What about you?
I think mine's quite similar actually.
Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to copy his answer,
Yeah.
but mine is quite similar in the sense that one of my boundaries is that I need to have my own life, not just in terms of like physical space, but I need to have my own life of like figuring out things on my own, as well as my partner figuring out things on his own before we can work together as a couple. Like I think that that's something that I really value. Like if you can only rely on me and I only can rely on you, that kind of thing, I feel like that would never work out in a relationship.
Yeah.
If God takes away this person, can you still survive? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that my boundary is to know that he is the person and the man that God has called him to be
Yeah.
before I can commit into the relationship,
Yeah.
and as well as my expectations of
Yeah.
myself.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think you raised a really good point because for me, like, I definitely needed emotional and physical boundaries during my relationship. And like, just for some context, like, in my relationship, we went through like 2 years of LDR. And prior to that, I was like zero boundaries, man. I was like, whoa, like I'm in love, you know. And I was like I was like really codependent. And I think codependency is something that sometimes you slip into and you don't realize. Like, I think a very good indicator is like when you're emotional, what do you expect of your partner versus what you expect of yourself, right? So God was like, okay, like I think God was like, yeah, I kind of like the two of y'all together. But then, right, I think you're a bit codependent. So he was like, okay, so then my husband went to Australia. And I was like, so sad. Yeah, same as you. But I think the good thing about that was that it helped me discover who I am in God. And I really thank God that was a very pivotal moment and growth season of my dating relationship. I think my friends can testify to that as well. And where I really knew like, hey, how am I as a person? And then how do we kind of lead both our lives and our ministries in parallel? And then eventually now that we're married, we know who we are when we come together.
So good.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you raised. Okay, what about the married folks? I want to hear from you guys, like in hindsight, right? Like, maybe not so much of boundaries, but why have boundaries? Yeah, I mean, of course, you all can share your personal experience, but what's the perks of even having boundaries in the first place?
What's the perks of having boundaries in the first place?
You can also share like things that maybe you've gone through, and then now in hindsight, you're like, hey, actually, I think boundaries were valuable. Something a little bit like what I just shared, maybe. Physical, emotional, spiritual, or anything you can also echo within.
I think spiritual boundaries are actually very important.
Okay.
Especially if you are a new or young believer. I think that it's important to know who you are in Christ. Even as you're going through a relationship. Doesn't mean that you're a new believer means you cannot date. But you can date, but I think that it's important to know that you and your husband or your partner's like destinies are not enmeshed. Kind of like what you were saying, but that yours was more emotional. So I'm talking a bit about spiritual. Doesn't mean that like, now that we're married means that whatever that we're doing is completely aligned. I think that God's destiny for each of us will still continue to be different. So I think one very important boundary is for if you're serving, if you have something that you're passionate about, don't forsake that and replace it with your relationship and say like, I want to pursue this relationship and this is my priority now, and whatever my husband's ministry will become my ministry. I think that it's important to know what the Lord has put you on this earth to do, and for you to pursue that as well. And somehow or rather you realize that it will come together. But it will only come together like what you say, like knowing that you guys are both individuals and doing these things together. Side by side, I would say. So don't throw your own dreams and passions out the window once you're in a relationship.
I think one thing you kind of briefly touched on is like don't idolize your partner as well. That's what about you?
Similar to what C said about okay, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. Okay, what I wanted to share was before I pursued my wife, right? I had a season of where I had a crush, right? And when you have a crush, you are excited, and all you want to do is you want to move forward into a relationship, right? And one thing that I struggled with was I was constantly communicating God, and God was always asking me to slow down. He was asking me to wait, don't rush, trust me, and this went on for 3 years. So I had this conversation with God for 3 years. I kept telling God, I just wanna confess. I just wanna go on a date. But then God was like, chill, take your time. And it reached a point, right? This is where there's an ouch moment. It reached a point where God had to slap me, and He told me this. He said this one sentence that I still remember to this day. He said, "If I am not enough for you, then you're not ready to be in a relationship." That was an ouch moment for me. Sorry to make it so serious all of a sudden, right? But I remember this with me, and this brings back to boundaries and all that, right? Is if we are just looking for a relationship just to feel this need, right? To not feel lonely, to have someone, to be able to be like everyone else, to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, to be popular. Popular in that sense, no one wants to be the only single person in your group of friends, right? And if we are just doing that just to feel this need, then I think we're doing it wrong. Right? And what I said at the beginning, if as Christians, right? As Christians, if we cannot say that God is enough for us, if we are fine being single and just you and God is enough, then I think maybe we might want to reflect that we might not be really ready for a relationship. So for me, that's the boundary.
Yeah.
That's the spiritual boundary.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I think like I don't know if you guys can relate to this, especially for those who are like married, right? Like I realized that the boundaries that I didn't set for myself as I was dating, they bleed on into my marriage as well. Yeah, example like communication boundaries, or like, you know, like how slow you are to anger, for example. I would even go to say like, where do you find your worst from? Those things, it's not like when you get married, it's like it magically disappears. I realized that I have had multiple conversations of unpacking these things with my husband, and I think there is value in even unpacking it as you're dating, because it saves you the trouble as well. Yeah, I'm sure y'all can relate to that. Is there like 100%. An example like that y'all can think of?
I don't have an example for that per se, but like I'm like thinking about my use, and like another boundary actually came to mind. So it's okay, right?
Yeah.
I think actually physical boundaries are super important, like for relationships.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be like a naggy mom, but like I always tell this to my girls also, especially when you get into a relationship when you're young and stupid, draw physical boundaries so you don't do stupid things before the right time. I think that is super important. And if you're a girl, I feel like there's always more to lose as girls. And I feel very protective of like the girls that are under me also. Yeah. So if the best thing that I feel like you can do for yourself in the start of a relationship is to set clear physical boundaries.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you only can kiss at the altar. I know some people do that, but that's, to me, is a bit extreme. You do you. Yeah, but I feel like it's very important to be very clear on like which lines you don't want to cross before marriage. Yeah, especially if you're young. Yeah, and being alone, you know, at home, all these kind of things. Yeah, I think. Yes, I sound like a naggy mom, but like as a youth leader, I feel like that's so important to establish. Because once you go there, you cannot come back. Yeah, once you cross the line, it's very hard to come back.
I agree.
Yeah, so 100% set physical boundaries even before you start dating. I think that's a conversation that everybody needs to have.
Yeah. And you know that song that when we were young, it's like the No Square song.
Stop.
Yeah. I think it's quite relatable now, because even as I was reading on some resources, and I actually recently a bunch of us in the team, we read this book on boundaries on dating. And I tell myself, like, literally as I was dating, I was like, first of all, I want to buy the book for people that I know who are dating and I'm mentoring. Second of all, so maybe I'll buy the book for you. Second of all, I wish I read it earlier. Yeah, because I think one point that he touched on, the writer, he mentioned, you yourself have to define what are your no-touch areas, what are your no-go areas, emotionally, physically and spiritually as well. If you don't know where they are, it's easy to cross those lines. Yeah, you have to know what the line is so you don't step across. Okay. I wish we could kind of dive a little bit more into that. I really like that part about that conversation. I think boundaries is such a huge thing. But guys, like, I think the conversation on boundaries really doesn't end here. If y'all really want to speak to, you know, your leaders and even ask us about our personal experiences with boundaries offline, we would love to share that with you. And we share this from a place of like, hey, there are certain things that we've done and potentially I wouldn't say cross the line, but certain experiences that we've had, which is why we feel so convicted about the things that we say. And we'd definitely love to have a chat about it. But you know, we only have 1 hour, so we're gonna dive into the next topic. But I think one of the questions we received anonymously was, how did you know that this person is the partner for life? Yeah, I think it's when you're writing, like, you know, when you're young, you're like, hey, what are you looking for in a partner, like your wife, right? You write down a list of like perfect attributes. You're like, you must be handsome. Must be handsome. You know, kind was one of the things you say. I think that was more for dating, right? But marriage is a huge thing. I think for me personally, as I was moving to marriage, I was really scared. Like, I was really afraid. For you guys, how did you know personally that, you know, you maybe for you guys who are married first, y'all can think about your experience. How are y'all so sure that this is a partner for life?
Interesting.
Yeah, I think different people have different answers to that.
Yeah.
But okay, maybe I can share first. I'm the kind of person that I need to know what I'm getting into before I start anything. It's just a personality thing, I think. I'm a planner, so I need to know that this guy is the right person before I even start dating. So I feel like Ollie and I were casually dating for a while, and then before we really entered the serious relationship with the intent to be married, I spent a good 6 months praying, or maybe even more than that, praying about it. Yeah. So for me, the kind of barrier to cross over to the next level was to get God's confirmation. Yeah. So that's something that I really diligently prayed. I was accountable to like my mentors and a friend. Yeah. So that I wouldn't be able to like kind of slither through the lines. If you know what I mean. Yeah, because okay, for me, I think it was also the same.
Yeah.
I had a very huge fear of commitment.
Yeah.
So even though I knew I really liked him,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't really know like whether I see myself married to you in the next 20 years kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it came from a place of like insecurity and like not knowing whether I should make the step, even
Yeah.
though everything kind of checked off.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about a checklist, right?
Yeah.
I feel like he checked off all my checklists, but I was still like hesitant to take that final step.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it was really, really setting aside time, kind of like what John mentioned also, to be alone, to pray about it, and to really receive confirmation from me. And it was very special moment for me because when I received my confirmation, my mentor was there with me as well. Yeah, so she was able to like affirm that. And we met that night at no, it wasn't Starbucks, it was Max.
Oh, Max.
It was Max downstairs from my house, and she was like, "Go have a happy relationship. I think this is the answer that you always wanted." Yeah, so from the moment we were boyfriend and girlfriend, I knew that he was gonna be the one. Yeah. So that's for me lah.
Okay, Des, what about you?
Okay, I don't know if my answer is the right answer, but I remember before getting married, I also asked some of maybe the more older married folks, how do you know when it's the right one? How do you know that your wife or your husband is the one, right? I also had the same questions before getting married because this is for life, right? And you don't want to mess up this decision. You can mess up any other decision, but this is the one decision that you cannot mess up, right? And I think a lot of the time, the answer that I got was, you will never be 100% sure. I think God made marriage in such a way that it is a leap of faith. You should not be scared or you should not be so unsure, but you also shouldn't. It should not be 100% guarantee. Right. And I think this is where faith comes in, and this is where your foundation of your relationship of God comes in as well. I mentioned just now about how every time I have arguments with my wife, I always go back to God. Right. And it's through all of these experiences stacked up together, right, that I always remember that I went through this and God brought me through it. He couldn't have brought me through it just to lead nowhere, right? And all this adds up to one big piece of evidence for me to know that, you know what, God has been with us, God has been walking with us, God has been faithful. We would not be here in even considering marriage if it wasn't for God. If God didn't tell me to do certain things, say certain things, bring us together, hold us together, we would not be here right now. Right. And that's where both of us, both of you, will have to make the decision that, you know what, God has been faithful. Let's take this next step of faith and continue to trust that God is still with us. And whatever problems may come in our marriage, we will still have disagreements, we will still have fights, but God is still there. And as long as God is still there, we'll work it out. And that is what the one means. Right?
I love that. I think one of the things that y'all said, which I'm just completely I completely relate to, is how God is really in the center of that relationship. And as you guys go through the process, right, you would know because the peace of God is always there. And I think for me personally, I was extremely unsure before moving on to the next stage. And like you guys, it was like a fear of commitment. Like I see it and I'm like, hey, marriage is a huge step for me. And sure, I like all these things about someone. For me, I was like, hey, I like all these things, but I maybe also don't really like certain things. A big area for me was with God, between God and me. I told God, like, if this is not a relationship you have for me, I can give it up. I was ready to be like, I will not fight it. I'm okay. So I remember it was a few months before we were still on LDR, and that's why I said LDR is very pivotal for me. And I told God, I was like, hey God, I'm gonna pray about it, but I'm really gonna let you take the wheel, and I'm okay if it's not the person you have in store for me, because if it is, you will do the rest. Like areas that I don't really, I may not really agree with. I know you will help me and you will help us grow through it together. But if it's really not for you, I'm okay to give it up. And that was when I really saw things change in my life. I saw the peace of God come in. I saw how God was orchestrating many, many things. And I was like, hey, it may not just be the right one in my definition, but it could also be the right one that, in God's definition, and how He sees both of us as a couple working towards the purpose that He has for us in store, individually as well as, together as one. Yeah. So I don't know. How about you guys? Like, now that you all have heard all those perspectives, right? Has there been, I would say, like, what will you guys do as y'all potentially progress to that stage? What will y'all kind of look out for, and what do you think you would act on?
Okay, I can share first because I think for me, I don't know for sure if my partner is the right one for me, and I think that a lot of people struggle with that as well. And of course, like you also when you mentioned, and I don't think that I would ever be sure as of now at this stage because I mean we're quite new and stuff. But I think that I always pray to God and I always ask Him to close doors. But God just sometimes He works in very magical ways where He just doesn't do that. And I think that it also comes with the freedom that He gives us to choose. But with freedom comes spiritual discernment, comes spiritual maturity, and I think that's the pivotal point for me in the future. To understand where I lie first as a believer and my identity in Christ before deciding anything in life, even beyond relationships. And I think that is something that I would definitely consider when I'm still considering as I'm praying about this relationship and asking God to please open or close doors.
Nice. John, how about you?
I think for me it's a very scary thing because I think one of my biggest desire in life is that I really want to honor God and I really want to glorify Him. And I think I have a big fear of stepping out of alignment and stepping out of His will. And my desire is really to be part of His plan, part of the things that He have planned for me as well. So that's one of my greatest fear. So it's not really who the one is, but it's me wanting to really honor God in every single thing that I do, be it relationship-wise or other aspects of my life as well. So I think about whether to know whether the person's the one in that sense, I think everyone's different. I think God speaks to us very, very differently. So I think what Des mentioned, when we consult our mentors, when we consult other leaders, they will share their different stories. So we are not expected to have a copy-paste the same story with our mentors or the people around us, but we can learn from them. But we need to know and be very sure how God speaks to us. So for me, just a quick story. So every big milestone of my life, I will always have certain criteria that I boldly ask God, I want this. So for example, my NS, God, I want it to be near my house. I don't want it to affect church, blah, blah, blah. So in this big milestones of my life, God always takes off every single prayer request that I have for Him. And I think for relationship-wise, I will be taking the same approach as well. So I have certain certain checklists that I have for relationship, and I think if God ticks off every single thing, then I know that it's from Him as well. So that's how God speaks to me, and I will follow that.
Nice.
And I think that's under an assumption that these checklists are also rooted, as in the posture is very important. I feel like it's good to clarify. I think that we also have a younger audience also. To clarify that the checklist is not you need to be damn handsome or you need to have a certain amount every month. But it needs to be rooted. I think what John shared was very, very interesting. It needs to be rooted in wanting and desiring to honor God. And wanting what God wants. So I think that's the bottom line, I feel. Regardless of how He speaks to you, the bottom line is I want what you want from me, God. And I think that God, as a father, I think He would love that in His children if we return the decision back to Him. Because yes, we do have freedom, and we return the decision back to Him and say, God, I want what you want from me. And regardless of how the answer comes, I think that the relationship will have God as a center.
Nice. I think you all raised a really good point, and I can completely see it in all your lives. Oh, I don't have either. Anyway, I wanted to say one thing that I really recognize is that God is really real in your lives. And I think when we include God into the picture of our dating relationship, it's actually not as complicated or difficult as sometimes it could be. I think, sorry, I was just kind of putting my thoughts together. I think I didn't expect the conversation to go here, but I love that in every single one of your dating stories or even your current experiences, it comes back to how God has been good to you guys and how it is a testimony in itself. And I think that's what we should all aspire to, especially for those of us who are still dating, which is that our dating season and our dating stories and our experiences can be used to glorify God as we progress through everything. So I just have one last question, and maybe I'll just get two people to share on this, right? How would you encourage someone else who is dating to pray for themselves or their partners? Yeah. I'll open the floor up. I know some of y'all are like, I really need to say something about this.
I'll start first. I really, really believe in prayer and being faithful in prayer, like especially even in dating. We always hear like in marriages, I pray for my husband, I pray for my wife and all that. But I feel like in order to develop habits that translate into marriage, like what we just talked about, it needs to begin in dating. We cannot expect that to magically appear like in marriage. Yeah. So how I would encourage someone to be praying for their partner when they're in a relationship, right? Yeah, is to know the partner's prophecies, and their destiny and where God's called them, and to genuinely pray for them as though you're praying for yourself, because that's what interceding for someone is, right? Standing in the gap for someone. So I always pray for all these prophecies. I have a list of them. I always pray and I always ask for God to bring it to come to pass. I always pray for everything that He does, to bear fruit, and for God's anointing to rest upon Him, even through His spiritual, duties, and even in ministry as well as in work. And also the other thing that I felt like was such a huge difference, or a difference maker in our wedding, was committing the entire event into God's hands. So maybe not so much of dating, but I guess the values apply. Which is to really ask God to be enthroned in your life, so that when people see you guys, that God is given the glory.
God's magnified.
He is magnified, exactly. And I think that through our wedding, even though y'all will know there were many things that happened that day, Ollie got COVID the day after. I can see God's hand through this entire thing. And even my relatives that came, to the wedding and all, I think that they also encountered the presence of God. I think that that's so important, and something on our hearts that we really wanted to see come to pass also. So whatever, big or small, wedding or not, commit it to the Lord, and I think that He will indeed guide our steps. Proverbs 3 verse 5 and 6, right? He will make our path straight.
Okay. One last person.
I want to encourage. Okay, unless you guys have something.
No, please go ahead.
Really, you all want to share? Okay, as Ashley was, I've never ever called you Ashley, but okay. As Ashley was sharing, I just felt that I need to encourage our single people. Right, I know this whole series is about dating, and we're talking about dating and how you know it's the one, how you know it's the right time of marriage, and all those kind of things. But I want to encourage all the single people that your life, right, is not separated into before dating and dating. Right? Singleness is a special time. It's a special time. I know when I was single, I was rushing to not be single. Right? And we're talking about prayer, right? So my encouragement to all the single people is, while you're single, right, pray for God to prepare you. Pray for God to. So a lot of times we pray that, wow, God, I pray that my husband will be this way, my future boyfriend is gonna be this way. But I think we miss out praying that we will be that person for our future partner. Right? And I think that's very important. Like we've been sharing and we've been saying, dating is tough. Dating is complicated, dating is crazy, right? It's not so straightforward. And marriage is just another season of that. It's more because you see your partner, you see your partner all the time, right? And things that you used to love now suddenly it becomes bit right? Okay. Anyway, coming back to what I was saying, right? Dating is tough, marriage is tough. Pray that God will prepare you. That you can be that person, that you will be ready, that when God moves you to that season of dating, right, you are ready because you have spent that time of singleness preparing, rather than just blindly waiting and just singleness is not a time that you just waste to get to dating. Right? There's now that I'm married and all that, I realized that all those times that I spent, right, just talking to God, like I mentioned how I got slapped by God, right? It was all important. It was all part of that journey. It was part of that journey of God preparing me and molding me into the boyfriend and the husband that I was supposed to be. Right? And I just want to encourage all the single people, don't feel discouraged. Don't feel like you're just waiting for the one to show up. right? God has a plan for you right now, not in 1 year,
Yeah.
not in 2 years when you finally meet the one for you.
Yeah.
So good.
Nice. Thanks, Des, for sharing. I number one, I feel like we should include you in our singleness panel. I think thanks for sharing that. I think you talked so much about preparation, even for ourselves, yeah. And I think tonight, as we end off, in fact, that was really our last question. If you guys wanted to hear more, you're gonna have to talk to them directly. But I hope you guys took something away. And I think even for me, as I was hearing you guys talk, I was also reminded like, hey, maybe there are things that I can pray for my husband, and even for the people that I'm mentoring, there are so many areas that we can continue to grow together. And the idea is that we're not here to live life alone. We're here to live life together as a community and to encourage each other even as we progress through life. But unfortunately, we've now come to the end of the second part of our living room session. I hope you guys have a fun time this evening. I think as y'all were talking, y'all were like, hey, actually I learned quite a lot also. But I hope for you guys watching us online, you guys had a great time as well. If you have missed, certain parts of the living room session, you can definitely tune in onto YouTube. Where we are at right now, or you can also look at our IGTV and send it to your friends who will be blessed by this as well. But before we end off, I just think it would be great to end off with a prayer. So shall we join me as we pray? Okay, it will just be a short prayer. Okay. Dear Lord, I just want to thank you for the people who are tuning in to watch this, as well as for the folks on the panel today. God, I thank you for the lessons that you have given to us, the way that you've been guiding us through everything. Lord, as we move on in this season of dating, and for those of us who are currently dating or even in a single of singleness, God, will you give us clarity? Will you be the word, will your word continue to shine a light into the next steps of our lives, and will you continue to always be with us in our midst? God, we just ask that even for those of us who are looking and seeking community, God, will you give us the right people so that we will have godly counsel, and along the way that we will know at every single step that you are always with us. God, we just commit every single person who is listening to this, as well as ourselves, Lord. For those of us who are married or even dating, God, will you be with us? And we thank you for all that you're about to do in our lives through us and into the people around us as well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay, so thank you for sticking with us through this live session, and thank you once again to our 4 wonderful panelists. Till then, we'll catch you guys in iGroups and in Sunday services. See you.
Bye.
See you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.